All right, so it's time to keep moving. Let's go ahead and take a look at our reference. We now need to create this big, what we'll call main or featured section here. It's going to have some text. It's going to have this play button that I mentioned. Like I said in the last lecture, though, we are not going to actually put in a video player just yet. And then we'll have a little call to action or input field here where you can have someone enter a name and an email address to start a free trial or whatever call to action you might want there. So with that being said, let's take a look at our page and let's go ahead and start creating this. So let's get back into brackets and let's open up our index.html. And we're going to start this down below the end of our header section. So we have our header section here, and we're going to put this in our very first section, or rather just above our very first section. So let's go ahead and let's delete these sections actually. So I'm going to delete all of these different section areas, and we're just going to add these as we go so we can do custom classes and divs for these. So I'm going to delete all of those, and let's create what we're going to call a main container, and this will sort of hold everything. So let's go ahead and create a div, and we're going to give this a class, and let's call that class main container. All right, let's move that down, and then let's also might be a good idea to give that a comment here and just say end main container. Alrighty, perfect. Now let's start working within our main container, and let's call our top section the top section main, and we're just going to give this, let's create another div. Let's give this one an ID because we're only going to be having one of these, and let's just call it top section main. And I want that area that we looked at earlier, so let's go back in here. I want the top section main is going to encompass all of this. So it'll have this background image, and then everything within it will be the text here, the play button, and then this little sign up field. So we'll have everything within that. We'll have multiple divs within inside of that. So let's go back into brackets. Let's make sure that we close this div off really quickly. All right, and let's go ahead and add another div here. So I'm going to indent just to make sure that I'm practicing good form here. And let's create another div. Again, we're only going to have one of these, so let's give this one an ID as well. And we're going to call this top section content. Now this is going to hold the actual content within. So let's go ahead and close that one off. I'm going to make sure that I put these on the same line. Very good. Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look at the content that we actually need to add. So we need to add what looks to be, some big text here and some smaller text. So let's just add an H1 tag and a paragraph tag. Back into brackets. Let's add an H1 inside of our div ID top section content. So let's do an H1 here. And let's just, so I think it says awesome looks, lowercase, so good. Okay, and that'll close that H1. Let's go ahead and then add the P tag as well. And I believe that said, let's take a look really. Awesome is the landing page. All right, let's go ahead and add that as well. So awesome is the landing page you wish you had when you started. And of course, guys, if you want to customize all of this stuff to look like your own business or whatever you're trying to showcase, go ahead and remember to put your, what is it that you're actually trying to showcase here, and put your own stuff in. You don't have to copy exactly what I am doing here. So now that we have that, let's go back and do a little bit of styling here. Make sure we get that background image. Now, included in this lecture's downloads, there is going to be a new JPEG file. It's going to be called friends.jpg. Mine is already in my images folder. Make sure you guys go ahead and download this really quickly. I'm going to hit my desktop and go to awesome landing page. Just double check. Images, yes, so it is friends.jpg. This is in the resources. Make sure you download this now. We're going to use this as that main background image. And to do that, we're going to use some styling. So let's go into, after I save, Control or Command S to save our index.html, let's move back into our style.css and let's start creating some new styles here. So if you recall, we created a new ID and we gave that ID a name of top section main. Now this was going to be the div that contains everything. So all we really need here is perhaps to give it a height and then a background image, and that's going to be that friend background image. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do our curly brackets, and let's go ahead and add the background image, the friends.jpg. So to do that, we know we use the background image. All right, and we're going to use URL. And then we want to make sure that we type /images to use our images folder. And then we're going to find friends.jpg here. And I'm just going to hit enter there. And let's go ahead and save that. Take a look, make sure that we're seeing our changes here. So let's. All right, so we'll notice that we have the content here. So if you can actually see this dark text here. So we have the H1, this will be the P right here, and then we have our H1 right here, but obviously this does not look the way it's supposed to look. Well, don't worry, we're going to continue to keep styling our new changes, or our new additions rather, and make this look the way it's supposed to look. So first of all, let's go ahead and make sure that we add our semicolon here at the end, and let's add a few more things, specifically a height, because this is going to move to the size of the content, but I actually want to go ahead and just give this a height so we don't have to worry about the spacing immediately. So let's give it a height, and let's do let's say 740 pixels, and then we're also going to make sure that we do a border of none, and some of you may see a border showing up around this. So let's save that. Okay, so that looks a lot better. We will notice that there is this space right here in the in between our top section and our bottom section. Don't worry, we'll go ahead and we'll fix that momentarily. But let's keep moving on and go ahead and add some more styles. Specifically, we need to add one for our top section content. So within our top section main, we have an ID called top section content. So let's add our curly brackets, and let's begin giving these some styles. So we don't want this to take up the full width of the page, so we're going to give this a width of about 60%. And just so you guys can see what I'm talking about, on our awesome landing page, you'll notice that we don't want all of this to either start or spread all the way to the edges of the page. So we can give this around 60%, which is kind of what we're seeing here and even here. So we'll do around 60%. You can play around with this if you want it to be a little bit wider. Go a little bit wider. If you want your words to be bigger, you can go wider so it stays on one line. Let's go back into brackets. Let's keep that. 60% sounds pretty good to me. But also we need to make sure that we center everything within this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a margin left auto. Let's do a margin right auto. And I also want to make sure that we set the margin at the top. And let's make sure that this is 0 pixels. So let's give that, or just 0. Okay, so don't worry, you probably didn't notice anything yet. We will shortly. Let's go back into our brackets. Let's go back to our index.html so I can remember what we have here. So we have an H1 tag and a paragraph tag within our div ID with the top section content, or rather inside the top section content ID. So let's go ahead and let's style those as well. Back into brackets, and let's go to our style.css, and we're going to add some more styles. This time we're going to do top, and make sure you do ID, top section content, and then we'll do a space and do H1. So this is going to apply to every H1, even though we only have one, that are in the top section content. and we'll do our curly brackets, and we will apply the styles that we want. So we need this to be white, we need it to be a lot bigger, we need it to be centered, and we're going to need to play around with the padding a little bit. So let's go ahead and change the font size. And instead of using pixels here, we're going to use font size, and I want you to use 4M. And let's use semicolon. That's going to make this 4 times bigger than the original size. Let's go ahead and change the font weight. Now, we can use the font weight attribute to make our characters either thicker or thinner. This is going to be on the thinner side. So let's do a font weight, and we're going to do 300. And let's go ahead and use our semicolon to finish that. And we need to change the color as well. So let's make this color white. Remember, you can type white here, or you can do pound followed by 6 Fs. And we'll end the semicolon there. And one other thing, we're going to need to center this. If you recall, this is going to be in the direct center of the page. So we need to use text align here. And we're going to do center and save. So let's save that. Go back in here and take a look, and that looks much better. Almost the exact same as our demo one here. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and style our paragraph one as well, so it's white and centered as well. We're also going to have to change some of the styling a little bit and then go ahead and get rid of this black bar. We'll do that momentarily. So let's go back in and change our styles here. What we could do is we could just copy this really quickly. Hit space, paste this, change the H1 here. So I just copied the top section content H1, and I'm going to change this to P. So this is going to apply these styles to every single paragraph in the top section content. So what we can do is, we're not going to want the size that big. It's going to be a lot smaller, but a little bit bigger than the regular size. So let's do 1.3 M. On top of that, I want to make the font weight a little bit thicker. So let's take that up to 400. There we go. We're going to keep the color as white, and we're going to keep the text align obviously at center. So let's go ahead and save this. Take a look. That's the other one. Go ahead and refresh. Take a look. Okay, so we're getting better. We have our background here. We have our H1 and our paragraph here. We're going to fix this this spacing issue here. We can see through to the background, and we'll continue on in the next lecture.